The Nashville Predators' three-game win streak has come to an end, but can they bounce back against the Utah Mammoth?
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Thank you for making us your first stop of the day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. I want to start off by shouting out all the Locked On Predators podcast community and our everydayers who tune in to chat all things Preds every day. My name is Jack Williams, and I am the Nashville Predators beat writer for the hockey news. And if you guys are watching the episode, not listening to it, maybe if you are listening to it, it can sound a little weird today. That is because we are not in our Nashville studio right now, aka my home office. We are currently in Orlando right now. And if you hear a little bit of noise coming in through the background, that is my niece right now. We are currently out of Nashville right now on vacation, but we'll be coming back in the New Year's. But as for now, we have a makeshift studio here in Orlando. Call it our Locked On Predators Orlando, Florida branch of the show. But we'll hop right into it today, talking about some Blues in St. Louis. Predators on Saturday lost 3-2 to the St. Louis Blues. It snaps a 3-game win streak. Unfortunate in that context. However, this wasn't a Predators team that really played bad. And I'll talk about just how this isn't the end of the world in the next segment here. I think, especially from what I've seen on Twitter, there's a lot of the sky is falling. It's going back to what last season was. That is really not the case at all. But we're going to talk about that Blues game and debrief that game here right now. First goal that was scored that game was from Tyson Jost off a deflection from a Nick Hague shot that tied the game at the moment 1-1. Tyson Jost, man, I know I've teased him a little bit on this podcast and talking about just the role he's fit in a little bit more and just how he hasn't been active. And it's kind of a treat for him, getting him to play in games. Just because he hasn't had a lot of action this year. And I think that's the role he knows he's fulfilling this year, of being a guy that was given a paid tryout and stepping in. He's going to be scratched a lot. I don't think he's going to be around next year. It's also a player that could be bundled at the trade deadline too, when we're talking about guys that could be sent off. He could definitely be a part of that for sure. It's a guy that is constantly being scratched each night. He's in and out most of the times. If there's an injury, he's in. Injury that we've seen lately is Jonathan Marchessault, who is day-to-day right now, I believe, with a lower body injury. That puts Jost in. He's kind of that player that comes in and out at times. But he did score against the Blues. Then Nashville kind of fell into a little bit of a hole in this game. They found themselves down 3-1 in the third period. It was Fedor Svechkov that answered back on a shorthanded goal. Predators' second shorthanded goal of the season, his second goal of the season, as well. What really made the goal was the setup. It was a fantastic setup from Erik Haula. You had Svechkov kind of going to the net on the shorthanded drive. Just a bold play when we're talking about shorthanded hockey too. Erik Haula along the boards makes a no-look backhand pass right to the tape of Fedor Svechkov, and he just puts it away. Just a great pass from Haula. He is really starting to come into his own a little bit more lately. I think that's one of the things I've been teasing on a little bit lately with Erik Haula as well, especially in saying, I don't know what in the world this guy's identity is on this team. He's really starting to pick up his offensive flow a little bit more. We're seeing more production from him, whether it be scoring or whether it be playmaking. He's also just been clutch on the power play this year. He has 8 power play points. Him and Marchessault, specifically with that third line with Bunting. Bunting's just been great all year around. He's just been locked down all year around. All around this entire year. It's Marchessault and Haula that have struggled to get going. However, both of them have been clutch on the power play, which I think is kind of signifying a little bit just how important of a role they're playing. Haula shows here that he is just a strong player on special teams all around. So a nice setup, a nice dish and assist from Haula, and then Svechkov, who has struggled to get going really this entire year, gets another goal in his tally area. This could have been a 3-3 game, and this could have had a different result because the Predators did have a goal that was taken back. Can't remember the name of the goalie right now for St. Louis, but he failed to clear the puck. He failed to clear the puck out. Instead of ringing along the boards, he kind of shot it out in front, which is just a big no-no. Shot the puck out in front, kind of tried to airmail it. Ryan O'Reilly was right there, just knocked it down with his stick, and then threw it right up to Stamkos, who was right in the front of the net, and he buried it into the empty net goal. However, going back into the play, Stamkos was offside. That was a big game changer in this game. When we're talking about the Predators getting involved in it and staying with it, there's a lot of other issues that contributed to this loss. And we'll go through that in just a second and talking about the goals they gave up and how they gave it up and how a lot of them are all similar. But that was a changing point. And when we're talking about the Predators getting going and want to get their offense going, they had that taken off the board and they find themselves in a 3-1 hole for the majority of the game until Svechkov scores, and it's 3-2. That was the final at the end of the day. But breaking down what Nashville gave up in that game and how they gave it up, and a lot of it was related. It's a lot of just defensive lapses in this game. The first goal was off a tip, and tips are give or take or whatever, and here and there and whatever you can do with all this kind of stuff, especially with Nashville scoring on a tip as well too. And you could all argue day and night about how well the Predators should be clearing in front of the net a little bit more, and you could be saying the same way with any team, just defending your goalie and cleaning up from the net a little bit more. But tips are going to happen, whatever. I'm a little bit more lenient on them. It's just good playmaking. The two other goals from Pavel Buchnevich, which he had 2 on the night, as I mentioned, that makes sense. I just said the same thing twice essentially. But the 2-1 goal that continued to put St. Louis ahead, that was off a rebound from Roman Jossi's skate. He tried to make the pass on the break into the zone. Puck came off of Jossi's skate, and he kind of had a rebound off the skate and allowed him to put it away to make it 2-1. And then 3-1, Buchnevich scored again off of a rebound. It was a bad rebound. Mainly, he had so much space off this rebound in front of that space and time, and kind of Saros had to get rolling on this puck, and that allowed him to put it away there. And that was a little bit more. Those 2 goals specifically, it was just bad defense and defensive lapses. It should have been better coverage by Josi on the second goal. And then the first goal, it was another rebound goal, and that's the example you can get into of they should have cleared the net a lot better in front of Saros. They should have cleaned up in front of him. They should have defended a little bit more, and just it should have been better defensively, period, to say the least. And that was kind of breaking down those goals there. But outside of the defensive lapses, the Predators played a decent game. And I'll get into the next segment of here where it's clearly, again, just the whole thing of I understand. And this will be kind of like, it seems like most episodes I have like a rant segment. The second one will be kind of that, and talking about, hey, let's calm down a bit. The Predators played this game well offensively, and they had their chances. And if Stamkos wasn't offsides, this game probably could have been decided in overtime or a shootout, and the Predators could be coming away with a point. They had a 32-20 shot edge, and they only took 4 penalty minutes. Now, from what we saw earlier in the year, the game, and this makes no sense at all. The games where the Predators had a high shot total and weren't in the penalty box at all, those were the games where the Predators did not end up winning. A lot of those games where they're putting a lot of shots on net and staying out of the penalty box, surprisingly, that is the games that they aren't coming up successful, which is a crazy thing to say. It's a wild thing to say, but it's true. And that's what we've seen statistically. And I think we've seen more so of it. Maybe it's less of the shots, because we have seen games lately where they put a lot of shots on that and they've won the game, especially against the Rangers where they dominated that shot total. It was only a 1-goal game, but they still won it. But I guess it's more so of the penalties. I think this is just a team that they need to play physical in order to be successful, but that shouldn't resort to them being in and out of the penalty box. I don't know where that gets resolved. That gets a little bit deeper into things, and I don't know if you can really make sense of that at all in the moment. Justin Barron returned off of IR as well, so you're getting another guy back. off of the IR list. The Predators injury list isn't too long, so that's not that big of a deal. I think Marchessault is the only one that's really sitting on it right now. Everyone else is fully healthy, but that's the Blues game. That's the Blues game in a bunch. It was just defensive blips here and there. And then the offense just played well. I mean, again, this isn't a bad loss. Yes, you lost to a team that is essentially right in the standings with you. The Predators really haven't done that a lot this year, where they've lost to teams that are in similar spots in the standings. And you could go back in the podcast and listen to me go on and on about how the Predators don't play like a bottom 10 team, and that they have this 7-3-2 record against, I think it's 8-3-2 record now against the worst teams in the NHL, including them, but not including them because they're not playing themselves, but just the bottom 9 teams, bottom 10 teams, they have that record against them. And this was just one of the exceptions to where they just kind of let it go. So, I mean, the hockey teams are going to lose games, and it's going to happen. And I won't spoil too much of that, but I will get into that in the next segment. In the next segment, I will tell you guys that, hey, y'all, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. They lost once. Yes, their losing streak, so their winning streak has ended, but that is not a resort to go back to everything that happened last season. So in the next segment, we're going to talk about why everything is A-okay, y'all. There is nothing like being near the ice during hockey season. The speed, the hits, the atmosphere, it's unmatched. Watching at home is great, but being in the building is a completely different experience. The only thing that used to get in the way was actually getting tickets, long queues, endless screens, and price changes at checkout. But that's why Gametime app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NHL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I pulled up the Gametime app to check out upcoming NHL games. For instance, the Predators are coming back to town on January 8th against the New York Islanders, so looking at tickets for that game, and I was surprised how fast it was to find great seats. The app is incredibly easy to use. Browsing, comparing, and buying tickets took just minutes. One of my favorite features is seeing the view from my seat before buying, so I know exactly what I'm getting. The zone deals are clutch. You choose the section, Gametime pulls the seats, and you save even more. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. So the big thing I want to talk about, and I may have not been here last year, but I understand the hesitancy to get behind this and immediately go from I don't think everyone's at a 1 on the chill factor right now, but I think they were at a solid 5 or 4 to immediately go from a 5 or 4 all the way to a 10. And I understand why there's a hesitancy to be like, oh, well, they're just playing well and they're going to immediately get bad again. That's what happened. There were stretches last year where the team won a handful of games and they just kept getting bad. And they went back. They just were resorting back to the way the team had started, just resorting back to bad play. Yes, a 3-game win streak had ended here, but this team has still won 11 of their last 15. This is a still really good put together team that is, I think, really cohesively found their identity, is playing to that identity, is playing competitive in games. They got 30 plus shots on net in this game. They had some defensive lapses here and there. I don't think this is a team that's still playing bad at all. And there's an account out on Twitter that I saw that rage baits a little bit. And I think they posted the final score and they're like, maybe the Predators aren't back. It's one game. It's one game against a team that is almost in the exact identical position. I look so weird with this pen up. I'm going to put this pen down. It's the same team that's in almost an exact identical position as your team. You just haven't lost to those kind of teams before. And like again, it just goes into the whole factor the Predators aren't that kind of team. And losses are coming here and there. They're not going to win out everything. It's just the whole thing of, yes, I understand why there's a reason to freak out and be hesitant of everything happening right now. But this is a team that's playing really well. If they win against the Mammoth coming up, which is another Central Division game, they go back to 5th place in the Central, and they are at 500 again. It's not like they lost and this is the end of the world. Yes, the standings are really tight, but this team is still in the mix. This team is still finally on the climb and is still on that climb. This isn't the beginning of the year. This isn't like less than a month ago to where they were winning all these games, and they were so bad at the beginning of the year that these wins, they still weren't moving in the standings. Now, when they lose like one game but follow it up with a few wins, they will continue to move up the standings. This won't tank them. This won't be the end all be all. This is one loss, and it's worth explaining that like it's truly not the end of the world. And like I think it's important for just all of us to come together and take a deep breath and realize, hey, this team is not going to, in my professional opinion, I don't think this team is going to be resorting to what happened last year to where, they win all these games and then immediately lose a bunch. Like the team just doesn't feel like that. It feels like what they have is together. And again, I understand the hesitancy of wanting to get on board with this. Absolutely. After what had happened last year, completely get it. But they just don't feed to that. Even Andrew Brunette said after the Blues game, a big factor of this as well was the holiday hangover, because this was the first game after the holiday break, and if you make a little bit more of sense of it and lay it out in front of you, it makes sense to talk about how, hey, we came into Christmas on a 3-game win streak after this brutal October and November. We're finally winning now, so we get to enjoy our holidays, and they picked up a big win over the Wild right before that. And that had to be a huge, huge, huge momentum booster. Then you go into Christmas and then Hanukkah and all the holidays in that moment, and you're feeling good and you can finally take the tension and relax a little bit in that time span. Then you're still on the road against St. Louis. You're going back to that and you drop the game. It makes a little bit sense there because the guard may have been down a little bit more. They may have been too relaxed. They may have not been playing desperate. It is a part of it in the moment. So, I mean, yeah, it's never great to lose, absolutely, but I just don't think it's the end all be all. There is a fan base that I covered previously in my NHL career that has had nothing but success their entire existence, and they would lose like one game, or they'd lose one game. It was immediately the goalie's fault, and this person had to be traded, and this person had to be traded. They lose 2 games in a row, and it was immediately the coach had to be fired, the GM had to be fired, and blah, 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 blah. And again, it was just, there was no semblance of like what bad is. And I think this team and these fans understand what the semblance of bad is. Absolutely, 100% after what had happened last season, what has happened in previous seasons as well. But I think this is not that. I think this team is good, and that just losses are going to happen along the lines, and they're getting to a stretch here where they're playing some really good teams. They're playing some key Central Division opponents along here. So it's important, especially on the road, that they're able to put these games together, win them, and continue moving on. And you can drop games in here and there. Absolutely. It's an 82-game season. It's a beast. But y'all, like, until they lose like 3 in a row, or until they start really streaking and they really start looking bad, like streaking the wrong way. If they start losing a bunch in a row, by streaking the wrong way, then I think that's a point to worry about. But it doesn't seem like this team has lost their cohesive identity. It doesn't seem like this team's really lost anything yet. They're still playing good hockey. It still seems like they've put it together. Even in the highlight package I watched, this team is still playing well. So I don't think there's any reason to panic at all. But we will analyze the Utah game coming up, which will be happening on Monday night, and then they will roll into Vegas after that. But before we get into the final segment, I want to talk to you guys about our Everydayers Club. Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Predators with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more. All for just $5 a month or $50 a year. The Christmas holiday season is coming to an end. However, $50 a year, New Year's coming up, get the most you can with a bargain deal like that. January to December, we're resetting the clock here, y'all. $50 right there. Fantastic. Go to lockedonpredators.supercast.com if you're interested in becoming an everydayer and being part of the Everydayer Club, or check the link in the show notes to learn more. When we come back, we will talk about what's next, talking about the next game coming up, and that is the Battle of the Ice Age, as it seems to be deemed lately. That is the Predators and the Mammoth. So the Battle for the Ice Age, and we're not talking about Sid the Sloth, or that is the only name I can remember from those movies. I don't remember what the Mammoth's name is, or the saber-toothed tiger. I've seen them, I promise, and those are the two. There was no team called the Sloths or whatever they are. Oh no, I don't remember the names of Ice Age characters, especially the Mammoth and the saber-toothed tiger. That doesn't matter. We're not talking about Ice Age. It would be a nice tidbit if I had that on the top of my head. But they are going to the Delta Center on Monday, and they're playing the Mammoth at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. So it's a little bit of a later game because they're going to be in the Mountain Time Zone. But hey, at least it's not an 8:50 local time start in Nashville. Can't get on that train again. That was wild. But they have played the Mammoth before this season. If you guys remember, all the way back in October 11th, they have lost 3-2 to the Mammoth in overtime. That was the second game of the year. I think the Predators were like 1-0-1 because they had beaten the Blue Jackets the game before, and then they lost in overtime to the Mammoth the next game. And if you remember, this was a game, I believe, that went to overtime, as I just said, and oh my goodness, the Mammoth dominated them in overtime, y'all. I don't know if you remember this. I don't think I've ever seen this. This is a young, fast team, and man, they flexed that in this game. I don't know if the Predators got possession once. I don't think the Predators got a rush in overtime in this game. The Mammoth dominated the possession in this game, overtime possession specifically. They dominated it. They didn't let the Predators get the puck once, and then I think it was just a nice move to the net, and they scored and won the game. They made the Predators look real bad in overtime, made this team look really old and slow. But again, that was, and I apologize if you can hear the dog in the background. I can't really do anything about that. So, but we're nearing the end, and he's starting to heat up here. So we're almost there. We're hanging in there, y'all. We are hanging in there. But Mark Chasseau could return to this game, according to ESPN, which hasn't been amazingly accurate this year in just updating and that kind of stuff. They say Mark Chasseau could return. He's expected to come back the 29th, and it makes sense in the moment because he's day-to-day. He has missed a few games here and there, but he could come back, so that's something that y'all should look out for in that game coming up too. They've also had a sizable break in between these road games. I know the big thing that they talked about was, especially November, just I believe they played like 9 games in 12 days, which is a crazy stretch, and they didn't have a lot of practice time in between. They have some good periods here and there now on this trip to really get in at least a good practice instead of like a day of practice for sure. But they have sizable breaks between these games, and they should take advantage of them. And especially when you're trying to get away from being on the road for as long as you are, and then getting away from what happened in November, where Nick Hague specifically said, I haven't had an actual practice since I joined this team, meaning that he spent the earlier part of the year injured. And then when he came back, it was just game, day off, game, and like had no time to actually have a real practice. So like just getting out of that flow is important. Also, Utah is also in a similar place. I just said also twice. In that this is a team hovering around 500. At 500, they're 18-18-3. their most recent result was a 1-0 loss to Colorado on December 23rd. So this is going to be their first game back after the break, and it could be a good opportunity for the Predators to pounce on them and really kind of wake them up and shake them up. However, this is a different situation too, in talking about they went into the break with a loss, and not a bad loss too, a 1-0 loss to the Avalanche, who have just run away with the standings this year. They're 18-3. They're looking to back to where they were and back over that hump. Prior to this stretch where they kind of just let things kind of fall apart, they've lost 6 of their last 10. They were 14-12-3 prior to this losing run, and now they're sitting at 500, which cannot feel good. And it's a big reason too why they continue to hover around that final wild card spot, and that is what the Predators are gunning for still. They are still in the race to get that right now completely. Again, like I said before the first segment, just because they lost one game, especially to a team that's not good or in a similar place as them, does not mean they are out of the standings completely. They're still in the race for this final wild card spot. If they can string games together, especially handing Utah a loss, that would be clutch. So Utah is trying to gain more separation between them and everybody else, especially in the Central Division, which is just, whoa, the Central Division is a heater, y'all. There's the best teams in the league are coming out of this division. Surprisingly, a team from this division hasn't won the Stanley Cup in a second, but you still have some really great competition coming out of there with the Avalanche, the Stars. The Wild are very good. And then you have got teams coming up like the Predators and the Mammoth. And you have teams that aren't fully out of it too. I know the Blackhawks aren't very good, but they could easily get back into it as well. The Jets can get back into that as well. This is a very competitive division when we're talking about from spots 4 through 8. I believe there's 8 teams in that division there. It's very competitive, and Utah specifically is trying to gain some room here while the Predators are trying to chase it. It's going to be a good matchup there too. In this game, again, Predators might have the opportunity to catch the Mammoth sleeping coming off of that holiday break too. It would be ideal as well for the Predators to get a win going into Vegas coming up on New Year's Eve in Vegas. This is a Golden Knights team that frankly they've only missed the playoffs once in their existence, and they continue to roll. This is continuously a good team, and I know that from experience. And this New Year's Eve game is a big deal too, just talking about how like it's in the afternoon and they shut down the strip, like they shut down the roads going through the strip. They shut down the road going through the strip, Las Vegas Boulevard. There's one road that goes through the strip. They shut down the road at night, and all the people can go on the street and they go watch the fireworks. But this is like the noon game, and it's like the beginning of like the celebrations for New Year's too. So it's a big like local deal in the area, this noon game. So it would be like a good momentum burst and a good momentum push for them to get this win at the Mammoth in Utah when we're in the sense of the Central Division and getting ahead in that and catching teams sleeping, and then moving on to Vegas, who you are not just going to pick up a win that's big in the sense of like the culture and stuff like that, and just kind of sucking the momentum out of the building there, but getting a big win against a team that is up there in the standings. And there hasn't been a ton of those this year. They put together wins against the Avalanche. They put together wins against a win against the Avalanche. They put together a win against the Wild. They've gotten a point out of the Wild. They've only beaten the Avalanche. They haven't gotten a point out of them in both matches. But they played the Avalanche well. And just continuously building up this momentum of just getting wins against divisional leaders and proving to the point I said this is not a team that belongs on the bottom of the standings. This is a team that is cohesively building their identity and getting out of there. Showing that you can hang with the big dogs like Vegas, Colorado, and all them. That shows that this team is still ramping up momentum and is building towards something at the end of the day. That's huge. And it starts with Utah and goes deeper into this road trip beyond New Year's. And again, they don't come back home to Nashville until January 8th. So there is still a lot of this road trip to go. But that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you guys for joining me for another episode from the Locked On Predators podcast from our makeshift Orlando studio. If you like what I say, if you like hearing all my ranting and all whatever's going on the top of my head, you can follow me on Twitter/X. My name is Jack G. Williams. Got very lucky picking out that handle. If you like reading my stuff, that's my bread and butter. I am a journalist first. My name is Jack Williams on the Hockey News Nashville Predators site. And if you guys are just interested in Locked On Predators, I am in the process of getting all of our social medias going back up and rolling. You can find us on Twitter at LO_Predators. And if you want to find us on Facebook and Instagram, we are Locked On Predators just there. But thank you guys again for joining me for another episode. Tune in tomorrow because we're kicking off the week here. We are rolling. We are ready to go to talk all things Preds this week. And I'm grateful for you guys. Thank you for joining me for another episode. Looking forward to chat more things Predators with y'all. And I will see ya tomorrow.